Hello and welcome back to Mass Effect 3.2. This is my campaign to persuade BioWare to make an alternate version of Mass Effect 3 using the ideas I have outlined in this document. Now this video marks the conclusion of the characters segment of the document. As you can see, there's kind of a general squadmate section that encompasses the characters and the powers of the suggested squadmates. But this video will mark the end of the character segment, and then in my next video I will just cover all of the powers briefly in one video. It shouldn't take very long to talk about. But before I make that video, I'm going to be making an announcement video, which will hopefully be good news for everyone involved with Mass Effect 3.2. But for now, let's get back to the characters with Tali through Zaeed. Alright, tali'zorah Vas Normandy. Perfect. It's quite fitting she should be on Shepard's squad for the final game. Along with Garrus, she is one of the most loyal companions Shepard's ever had, romanced or not. If she was romanced, however, a more drawn-out and emotional culmination scene en route to Kronos Station, one in which Tali's face would actually be shown, would be a more fitting end to a male Shepard and Tali's relationship. Thane Krios. For the most part, his role is acceptable, as well as emotional. However, as much as I love Captain Kirrahe, I believe that if the criteria regarding Thane are not met, Kai Lang's assassination attempt on the Salarian Counselor's life should be successful. Thane's impact on the overall story in Mass Effect 3 needs to be bigger. It takes away from his uniqueness if another character simply fulfills his role. See Priority the Citadel 2 for other changes to Thane's role in relation to this aspect. And I will get to that in another video. Also, though Thane is dead by the time the Alliance attacks Kronos Station, I still believe a more tender/tragic romance scene is possible. Instead of playing the default animation for a Shepard with no love interest, a female Shepard who had remained faithful to Thane throughout the game, even after his death, should instead pick up a picture of him sitting on her desk. She brings it over to her bed, sits down, and begins to sob as she remembers Thane's words of love and encouragement to her. She lies down and hugs the picture to her chest as Thane's final prayer for her is repeated softly in her memory, and then the scene would fade to black. After her nightmare, when she is woken up by Edie's announcement, she places the picture tenderly on the nightstand behind her bed. The shot would linger on Thane's face as Shepard gets up from the bed, and then it would fade into the next scene. In my opinion, this tragic scene would make Thane's romance one of the most satisfying in the entire game, even though he is not actually present for it. Not Rex. I'm a big fan of Rex's role throughout the series. It's a story of a simple mercenary who decides to stand up for his people and alters the course of history for the Krogan. His role in the Citadel DLC was also fulfilling. I was very satisfied with his role in Mass Effect 3. And finally for Zaeed. His role was fine. Zaeed is one of two exceptions to my belief that squad members should be more than war assets. Being a DLC character, Zaeed had no dialogue options aboard the Normandy and very little character development compared to other characters. Plus, even if his loyalty was gained during Mass Effect 2, his true loyalty is to his profession. He has no reason to put his life in constant risk by joining Shepard's squad, or performing other more major roles in Mass Effect 3. Finally, being a DLC character, some players did not have access to him in Mass Effect 2, so it would be unfair to them for him to have a large role in the story. Okay, so Tali's role was great for the most part. It was really a remarkable achievement, I thought. Her role was fine. She fulfilled everything that she needed to, except for her romance. And I'd heard from someone, or at least I remember hearing from someone, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, that the reason that her romance was so rushed, or her romance scene was so rushed, I should say, was because the developers didn't exactly know whether she was going to be a squad mate until nearing the end of the production. So it's sort of like they hadn't decided yet, and then all of a sudden they decided she was going to be, and so they had to animate a romance scene really quickly. Which would make sense, but, of course, players who romance Tali deserve better. And also, side note, this is not the last time I'm going to talk about Tali's face. So don't worry, there is a whole nother segment of the document that is devoted to Tali's face. That is in the other section, which is after the ending section. But yeah, definitely players who romanced her do deserve better. It's especially something showing her face would just be a perfect end to a male shepherd and Tali's relationship. So as for Thane, and some players might disagree with me, but I believe that he should die regardless of your choices, which I know that I'm really big on choice, and I think it should affect the role, but not in Thane's case. Same with Samara, which I talked about in my last video. There will always be sacrifices in war. There should be losses. So, Samara's death is one of those. Morden's death maybe, because he doesn't actually have to die, but in most people's playthrough he does. But Thane should be another example of how there are always sacrifices in war. Plus, it's a tragic scene. His death scene is really well done, and it's emotional. So, I definitely wouldn't take that away. However, people who romance Thane definitely deserve more than they got. Like I said, in my opinion, that scene that I proposed, I think it would make it one of the most satisfying in the entire game, because that is one character's death, or at least one romanceable character's death. Romanceable is not a word, but flow with me. I believe that he is the only romanceable character who actually will die regardless of choice. And so I think that needs to be special. I think that needs to be shown not in just a default animation for a female shepherd with no love interest. That romance and faithfulness, even after his death, needs to be acknowledged, and I think that romance scene would be a good way to do it. I mean, honestly, I would probably shed a tear or two if that happened to a female shepherd that I had created. So yeah, I think it would be really great, a fitting end even to their relationship too. Also, his impact does need to be bigger. I know, again, that you know that I'm big on all of the characters, or at least all of the squad mates, having a big impact on the end of the game, depending on the choices you made regarding those characters. And so Thane's impact was close, but not quite there, and I'll get into that later with my thoughts on the Priority of the Citadel 2 mission. But it does need to be bigger. It should have a bigger impact on the ending of the game. But I think BioWare came close to fulfilling that. There's not really a ton that I would change. There's just something that I would add in that mission that would make his impact a lot bigger. But again, I will get into that later. So Rex, his role was fine. I didn't really see a big need to change it. I mean, yes, I would have liked for him to have a kind of a bigger role without changing too much, and I think that BioWare did that very well with the Citadel DLC. It was a good way for him to come back into the story and, you know, even be a temporary squad mate. So I think they did fine. I wouldn't change anything about Rex's role. And as for Zaeed, you might have noticed that my description in the document is pretty much exactly like Kasumi's. I have the same reasons, the biggest one being the fact that he's a DLC character and some players didn't have access to him in Mass Effect 2, so you just can't have the plot revolve around a character that may or may not have existed in the second game. And of course, very little character development. You didn't have any dialogue options with him. You could select things in his room and he could talk about them, but really no development. Also, his loyalty is to his profession. I mean, he's a rough and tough guy. He's not going to sacrifice his life for Shepard. So yeah, I believe that wraps up this video. It was pretty short, just going over some characters that I didn't really have any big issues with. I will see you next time with the announcement video, and then after that, the video about the powers of the squad mates. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you notice any errors of any kind, be it a typographical error or something that might create a plot hole later on, let me know as well. And again, that just about wraps this up. So I will see you next time with the announcement video, and as always, thanks for watching.